Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing. And you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, well, people have been getting big healthcare bills in the mail, and some people never had to pay before, but they got to pay now. And he said the only way they can do it is if they skip meals. And, folks are struggling out here. And the sad part is it's about to get worse because price naturally goes up in the spring and summer. And now, on top of that, you got this war. And then you got Iran that's vowing to keep the Straits of Hormuz closed, which is going to have a horrible economic impact around the globe. And yeah, it's going to impact the US as well. So, that being said, it's going to be horrible this summer. There are places already at $7 a gallon, some say 8. I just can't imagine how much worse it will get from this point on. And we're not even officially in spring yet. We still got a little more time left before it flips from winter to spring. But I can tell you, I do feel bad for people that are struggling economically and they're barely making it now. And Trump just made everybody's life that much tougher in this country. And they're nowhere near, Donald Trump keeps lying to the public, talking about there's nothing left to bomb and all this. It's just this bogus crap. And, one thing he must remember, because he's talking about nukes, oh, we can finish them off. But it just proves one thing. When it comes down to war and somebody can come back at America with the same level of firepower, y'all can't handle that kind of opponent. So you want to go extreme with nukes and take people out because when it comes down to combat where somebody can come back to you and bomb you as much as you can bomb them, you don't do so well. See, you need weak components that really don't have much to fight with. So, that's the only time you may shine a bit. But when somebody can come back at you, you don't do so well. That's what it does prove. Now, I feel bad because this is probably not going to be the only time healthcare costs will go up. Donald Trump did this for his rich buddies. When Obamacare was still around, it still is, but you're going to have to pay because of the changes Donald Trump made. A lot of people could be on it with little to no cost. Now those same people, they won't have it like that anymore. You're going to be billed. He does not care. And this is just another fact. Donald Trump don't care. He's doing this for his rich buddies that own these companies, you know, And we all know rich people got an appetite that can never be satisfied. I think if every citizen gave them $1 every month, they would up it to $5 by the end of the year because they have an appetite that just can't be satisfied. And at the end of the day, y'all, I think the damage that has been done over these last few weeks is irreparable. It's irreparable. You can't fix this. And unfortunately, it's going to be, when it gets to be too overwhelming, it's going to be a lot of people walking around here uninsured because they just simply won't have the funds to pay. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Our nation's emergency departments are overwhelmed. They're understaffed, under-resourced. They see acute presentations while they manage complex chronic conditions that haven't been able to find any success in the outpatient environment. One of the things underlying all of this is a nationwide nutritional deficiency problem. I'm Dr. Rick Pescator. I'm an ER doctor. I'm the editor-in-chief of Emergency Medicine News, and I'm a former state chief physician. Nearly 95% of Americans do not receive the recommended amount of nutrition. Greater than 50% of Americans do not consume enough magnesium. In one cohort, nearly 100% of men were vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D deficiency is linked to bone disease, muscle disease, autoimmune disease, cancer. We have a nationwide nutritional deficiency problem. Vitamin D, A, C, B. Vitamin C deficiency causes scurvy, and this is a problem in our country. We have extremely poor mechanisms of measuring these things. We use, in some parts, a door-to-door clipboard-based survey to evaluate this. This is completely under-recognized, completely undervalued, and demands immediate public health action.
The financial cost of healthcare in the United States is reaching a breaking point, according to a new poll by Gallup, which demonstrated that nearly 1/3 of Americans, approximately 82 million people, are making financial sacrifices like eating less or driving less in order to afford the cost of their medical care. This study, which surveyed approximately 20,000 Americans, found that about 15% of US adults prolong current medication use in order to afford subsequent care. About 15% of US adults borrowed money, and 11% of adults skipped a meal in order to afford their healthcare. Now, if we look at the data, these trade-offs, right, people who are having to choose between healthcare and food are far more common for households that are of lesser socioeconomic status. For example, 55% of households making less than $24,000 a year have to choose between these different trade-offs. This contrasts with households making $240,000 a year or more, where only 11% of those households have to make those trade-offs. Similarly, those individuals who report poor or fair health are much more likely to have to make these sorts of trade-offs. And this makes sense given the fact that they have more exposure to the healthcare system and having to pay for healthcare. And what's interesting about this survey, as someone who studies healthcare systems and the healthcare systems in the United States, is that these financial trade-offs are far more common for individuals who do not have health insurance, right? According to this survey, 62% of those surveyed who did not have health insurance had to make one or more of these trade-offs. This compares to almost 29% of individuals who do have health insurance that had to make these trade-offs, right? And this is interesting when we take this survey, right, which finds that people who are uninsured have to make more financial sacrifices in order to afford healthcare. And we juxtapose that with the policies and provisions that have been passed, right, in the last year or haven't been passed, like the extensions to the Affordable Care Act enhanced subsidies, right, by this administration and Congress, which threaten the affordability and the accessibility of health insurance for millions of Americans. In fact, it is estimated that nearly 16 million people will lose their health insurance coverage by 2034 because of these provisions passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And because of this, you have people which, according to this survey, are also postponing life events like having or adopting a child, like pursuing additional education, like buying a new home, postponing these big life events because they have this high amount of medical cost. And look, I am not blaming individuals for making personal decisions about choosing things like food, electricity, and rent over the cost of health insurance, right? That is such a horrible decision to have to make. So I don't blame individuals for making choices for themselves. I also have a lot of thoughts about healthcare providers encouraging people to forego insurance, like I've seen on this app, which maybe I'll talk about in another video. However, as someone who studies systemic issues resulting from our healthcare system here in the United States, I am very concerned about people's financial well-being in response to maybe one random medical event that they could not have predicted and the subsequent backlash from that, particularly those who have to make the choice to forego health insurance. Coming from someone who grew up when the Affordable Care Act was passed, but by no means was a perfect bill, going from that where we cut the uninsurance rate in half to this current system where millions of people are losing their health insurance and going into substantial medical debt, specifically because of that decision, due to the fact that we have made healthcare and health insurance in this country so expensive, it's just so incredibly disturbing. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any effort by this current Congress or this current administration to increase access and affordability of healthcare towards the majority of Americans. And it's frankly really sad for me to, I guess, come to terms with. But for now, that's all I got. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you say that all again? Because I'm not really understanding. What did you say the copay was?
The copay came out to be $3,981.07.
$3,981?
Yes, ma'am. That's how much it came out to be.
That cannot be possible because I've been on this medication for probably 6 months and I've never had to pay a dime towards it. Did you say, how much did you say insurance is covering?
Insurance covered $4,648.19.
And then this is for how much? So insurance covered 4,000 something, and you're saying I still owe almost another 4,000. So you're saying this medication is $8,000?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And
$8,629.
it's a 1 month supply. Okay. I was just gonna say, like, is there a way to find out what happened with the insurance?
I'm a benefit verification representative, so all we do is process the claim.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how they do it on the insurance side, but
Okay.
when I see copays like that,
I don't think this is right. There's no way I can afford almost $4,000 in this medication right now.
yes, I understand. That's why I was trying to offer you copay assistance.
What's the copay assistance mean?
It's called the Fix It My Way copay card. They will give you a copay card and also a virtual debit card, and they will pay that for you.
So I would sign up and then get a virtual debit card. How much am I paying for it?
They offer annual benefit of $10,000 per calendar year, as little as $0 every month for the Fix It.
Yeah, how do I go about getting this?
I can give you their phone number and also their website. You can actually call them today and go ahead and get enrolled. And then once you get your that copay card information,
Yeah.
go ahead and give us a call back.
Is there a number that I can have to call you back?
They sign up for that copay assistance
Uh-huh.
program. They pay it straight through. Like they
So it's basically just extra hoops I have to jump through to get this copay card.
yes.
I'd like to make it very easy on this.
And now you go and you take $100 bill and it buys nothing. $100 bill Oh my God. I can remember when I could come home with the whole thing of groceries for $100. Right now, for $100, you're not getting much of anything.
How can a wealthy country like America have millions of people skipping meals? This is not a hypothetical question. It is happening every single day. Some families only manage to eat once. Some people have to choose between paying the power bill or having dinner. And more Americans are lining up at food banks as if they were living in a war zone. Food prices are soaring. The cost of living is crushing every paycheck. This quiet survival crisis is forcing more Americans to shrink their portions or even give up meals altogether. In this video, we will take a closer look at 7 states hit the hardest, where people can no longer afford to maintain daily meals, right in the heart of the United States. Number 1, Texas. Do you remember when Texas was called the land of opportunity? A place where a working class person could still provide for their family, buy a house, and keep the fridge full. But what about now? A loaf of bread today costs nearly as much as an hour of work for a janitor. And the chilling reality is that even people with steady jobs are skipping meals. Texas now has more than 4 million people living with uncertainty about where their next meal will come from. Seniors are among the hardest hit. A recent statistic shows that 13.6% of Texans over 60 are struggling with hunger, even though they retired legally and paid taxes their entire lives. Did you hear that they fulfilled their civic duty, yet they are left hungry in their own homes? In El Paso, food banks have had to open evening shifts just to serve people who work. This is no longer only about the unemployed or the homeless. A Walmart employee after an 8-hour shift has to stand in line for free food. Who could have imagined that a decade ago, and the suburbs are not doing much better? In places like Laredo, many people are surviving on instant noodles, plain rice, and canned beans. They have learned how to fill their stomachs without nutrition and treat it as a survival skill, not a temporary fix. Sound familiar? Stories like these have become everyday life now. How did a state once leading in oil, energy, and economic growth end up here? Part of it comes from skyrocketing housing costs, which drag utility bills, gas, and insurance up with them. But worse policies have not kept pace with the collapse of real life. SNAP benefits were cut. Rising gas prices pushed food transportation costs higher, and the ones paying the price are none other than the end consumers, you and me, and millions of Texans. And if you think this only happens in remote rural areas, look at Houston, a bustling modern city. There are neighborhoods where at night the kitchen lights are off, not because people go to bed early, but because there's nothing to cook. Texas is not only hungry for food, it is hungry for justice, responsibility, and decent policies for working people. A place that once symbolized independence and resilience is now struggling under the storm of high prices, where eating 3 meals a day has become a privilege. What would you do if tomorrow you had to choose between buying
82 million Americans are skipping meals, cutting utilities, and borrowing money just to pay for healthcare? This isn't a crisis coming, it's already here. And it's not just the uninsured. People making over 240K a year are making these same sacrifices. A brand new survey just dropped. 82 million people, that's 1 in 3 Americans, skipping meals, driving less, borrowing money just for healthcare. People are delaying surgery, putting off having kids, pushing back retirement, all because they can't afford the bill. Follow me. Here's what nobody's talking about. We're not just getting sicker, we're getting poorer because we're getting sicker. It's a loop. And right now, nobody's breaking it. Look, I grew up in Long Beach and I work in the same neighborhood I grew up in. I've seen what happens when communities can't access care. Just got off the phone with a patient who can't pick up his blood pressure medications until next week when he has enough money. He's in his 70s. Unfortunately, this isn't new for a lot of us, but 82 million, that's not a community problem anymore. That's a national emergency. Drop a comment, and if you're making these sacrifices right now, if 1 in 3 Americans can't afford healthcare, what does that say about the health of our country?
If you feel like you can't afford basic life milestones, you're not alone. A new poll conducted by NBC News, The Washington Post, and Ipsos found that 56% of Americans say that they can't afford health care. 60% say they can't afford a week-long vacation, and 74% say they can't afford a new car. Yes, you heard that right. 3/4 of Americans say they can't afford a new car. The poll also found that over half of Americans are carrying some type of credit card debt, medical debt, or student loan debt. So, yeah, when political figures say that the economy looks good and the Dow has hit 50,000, that doesn't translate to paying the bills. And let me be clear, this isn't about Americans forgetting how to budget. This is the fact that the cost of simply living is not keeping up with wages. So, if you feel like this is your reality, you are certainly not alone. This is showing up clearly in the data.
The Pentagon is thinking about, under Donald Trump, asking us for tens of billions of dollars more to wage this war of choice in Iran. At the exact same time that this same Trump administration said that we don't have enough money to keep people on their health care, so we've got to kick millions of people off of their affordable health care, they're wanting us to write them a blank check for another endless war in the Middle East. It's just nuts. And we've got to be able to say no. They're trying to say that this is somehow to protect our troops. But the right way to respect and protect our servicemen and women is to not send them into endless conflict without any clear strategy for protecting Americans. So, look, I'm of the generation, just like you, Mike, and like lots of people watching at home, where it's people that I know, people that I love, friends that went to the Middle East in forever wars and never came back or never came back the same. And we can't have that happen again. We should be putting our money towards healthcare, not towards more warfare.
Okay. Well, yeah, we should be putting our money towards a lot of things. But America wants to put money towards everything except for us. We are the only ones they won't give reparations to or give what we are rightfully owed. But when it comes down to anybody outside of us, the money always seems to be there. Always there. $1 billion a day, y'all, is being spent on this war. 1 billion per day. But if you say reparations, they don't have it. They don't have it. It is just unbelievable. But I'm glad that this is something that a lot of people see. I was listening to this white guy this morning when they were talking about how the Somalians want reparations. He had a meltdown. He said the Somalians don't deserve one dime. You stole from this country. And then he said, I'd rather give reparations to the Black Americans than give reparations to Somalians. And I'm like, yeah, the Somalians shouldn't get one dime. All they need is a good ass kicking on their way out. That's about all they deserve. So anyway, y'all, I hope that any of you that are impacted by this, that money will come your way and you'll be able to take care of your health care if you have to pay for it. And those of you that have not been impacted yet, maybe it won't hit you this year. Maybe you will be spared. But millions and millions of Americans are now dealing with bigger health care bills, bigger premiums, and they already couldn't afford the one they were paying before the price hike. So, yeah, stay prayed up and stay safe, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I got my next live coming up at 3:45. And this one is going to be something they are just admitting now, but this actually happened 3 years ago, but they are making this public now. So 3 years ago, a foreign hacker is what they're saying. According to the FBI, a foreign hacker got a hold and stole the Epstein files. So they were able to hack in, get a copy of the files, and they claim, I don't think they know who did it. They're claiming that the person that was in charge of the data left a breach, and somebody was able to hack in and get all of the Epstein files. So it just proves that America cannot keep the digital data safe. They can't do it. So, you know, it just makes you wonder how many other things that they did not safeguard properly got breached. So we'll be talking about that at 3:45. So everybody have a wonderful afternoon. I will see you then. Shalom, family.